for the people that say, look, this is just not my space, is it similar to saying back when the .com era started, internet is just not for me? And then obviously you fast forward 10 years later, you just physically cannot function unless you know how to use the internet. Do you think this is a very similar situation where right now it's probably as confusing as it was back in the .com era, back when apps first started? People are just like, I don't really know how to use an app and what are apps, and it's just not for me. But obviously everything has an app right now.
Yeah.
Is that similar? Do you think that in 5 years, if businesses, small or big, don't incorporate NFTs or crypto, they're just going to be left behind?
I think maybe the better way to phrase that is also just to say, is Web3 relevant, and do I really need to care about it? I wholeheartedly say yes, and I think it's exactly like you called out.
Hey Nadeem.
Hey.
Thank you for coming over.
My pleasure. I always love coming over.
A topic like this is pretty much what's needed on my show. A topic for people to understand what the hell is crypto, what the hell is NFT, and for those who are already in it, how could they, use it in their businesses? What is the crypto space going to look like in 5 years? Should people be in it? Should they not? Is it a choice, or it should no longer be a choice? I want to kind of touch on that, more so on not the version of trading crypto, but more so on how businesses could use crypto, because the average person is not a trader. The average person has a business. So let's kind of touch on that. But to begin with, I want to pretty much reiterate why I have Nadeem over here. Nadeem is a friend of mine to start, but he's also the head of strategic partnerships in Binance. So his job is to pretty much get businesses to incorporate crypto, to incorporate NFTs. So you can touch a little bit on that if you like. But to start with, in general, I'm at dinner. Almost every other dinner, crypto's brought up. NFTs are brought up. One person has a completely different opinion than the other person on what to do with this, right? Some people are like, don't even get near it. You'll have the other end of people saying, hold on a second, I'm in crypto and it's great. I love NFTs and I've used it for my business. Why is there such an extreme, volatile sentiment towards crypto? And where do you see it headed?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me. Always love coming over. I think this is such a good topic. So massive kudos to you to being able to bring this to the audience, right? So thanks for having me on your little talk. Look, I think the biggest issue, right, is always education, right? Just lack of knowledge. Like that's like where it all starts. People have such diverse opinions because they actually just don't understand the basics of what this technology is. So let's just circle back to the entire space. Like, when did crypto kick off? Like, why? How was this thing first kicking off? So you have to start with when it all first was born, right? October 31st, 2008, the world got introduced to this thing called Bitcoin, right? In essence, what Bitcoin actually was there to produce was a peer-to-peer cash system, right? An electronic cash system, meaning I can send you money, you can send me money without the need for what we call intermediaries, institutions, right? And you have to think why that was, right? When institutions were first created, and that could be anything from a bank to a company, that was the case because it was really a social construct of why institutions were created. We grew so big as society that it was hard to trust someone that wasn't in your immediate circle, right? Even then, sometimes hard to trust people in your immediate circle. But with that growth, we needed these like intermediaries, right? We needed these companies, we needed banks to be able to sit as a central counterpart. And I'm gonna use that word a lot, centralized versus decentralized. And you're gonna understand where it really all comes from. And we needed all these people to sit in the central counterpart to trust each other, right? I trust the independent counterpart that you can trust. So when I'm sending you money, I'm collecting money for business, whatever it might be, I at least have someone that I can trust that we can both agree on to manage our money, to manage our finances, to manage our transactions. But with that grew a crazy amount of centralization, right? You can imagine that these large companies, whether they be social platforms, banks, created such power, right? Everything was driven through them. And because of that, a lot of discretion came in terms of transaction costs, right? In terms of ownership of content, especially when we think about social media. And so this whole world of crypto was born on something called blockchain. which was a way for decentralization to happen. How do you cut out all these middlemen? How do you cut out the central platform in order to be able to go me to you in a trustless way? What I mean by that is, I don't need to know who you are in order to transact with you. If you think about trying to do that in the world today, it's very hard, right? I don't even know who you are. Maybe you're a friend of a friend of a friend. And how do I know what your trust value is, right? I can only trust the people I know. And so blockchain as a company or as a technology really was born to allow the world to engage with each other, whether they be businesses or individuals, in this new decentralized way, in a trustworthy manner, without having to know that counterpart. Now, there's tons of crazy math that go behind that, right? I don't even need to go into that. For anyone that wants to go into it, look up something called cryptography. It'll blow your mind. It even blows my mind at times. But that's like the basis of everything, right?
So just to add to that, about the technology where things are decentralized with crypto versus a centralized regulated world where banks are in the middle, and the whole purpose is for them to kind of intervene to say, fair trade, this is not, this guy is not legit, this guy's legit, okay, that this transaction can go through. With crypto not being centralized and it's only peer-to-peer, how is it possible that you're sure and guaranteed not to get scammed, right? Because a lot of people hear about scammers on crypto, even rug pulls and NFTs. How do you know that the person that you're dealing with is legit?
Yeah, such a great question. And this is, I guess, where the intersection of regulated and centralized platforms play into a world of decentralized world of crypto, right? So, Binance, for example, as an exchange, are a centralized platform, right? We act as that intermediary to allow you to trade with someone, where to put that money, where to hold your crypto. This whole world of, blockchain is built on decentralized manner. But to your point, a lot of people are going to get scammed, right? They get sent a random link by some random person. They think it's safe. You have to understand that how and who you interact with is only as trusting as what they're trying to sell you in the end of the day, right? So, and what I mean by that is you are going to get a lot of scams in this space. And the reason for that is because not everyone knows how to use this technology appropriately, right? Not everyone knows what actually is being sold or bought. And so you get a lot of scams by people sending you these links or these fake NFTs or whatever it might be, for someone to come and interact with that link, maybe put some crypto towards it, and realize that actually what they're getting sold isn't legit. And I guess the best way to really avoid that is to actually think about, well, how do I go towards platforms that I can trust, that actually help that one level of trust to avoid such scams happening? I think the biggest advice to anyone on this chat is to avoid getting scammed. Don't interact with random direct messages, random links that you just don't trust, right? And I guess it's interesting because it is like a contradictory point to your question, right? Like, how can you build a decentralized system and not trust the person you want to engage with, right?
And also, you're saying that Binance comes in as almost like a regulatory authority or who's able to regulate this. But then again, isn't that a contradiction to why crypto is there in the first place? Because people love the fact that it's decentralized. So it's almost like Binance is taking the place of a bank, but it's still an entity almost in between the user and...
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Look, I think the way to think about it is these platforms like Binance, like others out there, are marketplaces, right? They're a place for two people to come and be able to buy and sell, for example, NFTs, buy and sell cryptocurrency. And regulation actually came on us, right? It wasn't that we chose to regulate the space. Actually, we created a nice uniform place and an easy to use experience for people to interact with this technology, to make use of that infrastructure. But with the growth and with such large size, and to give people an idea of like how big the size is, like the market cap of crypto today is like over $1 trillion, right? It's sizable, right? It's insane how much there is in this space. Over 1 billion people have already started using crypto in some shape or form, right? So it's a large part of the world. So governments and regulations actually couldn't turn a blind eye to the space anymore. So they are actually the ones that have come in and asked for some kind of regulation to allow people to feel safer to operate in this space, right? And so, companies like us work very closely with like all regulators around the world to help adhere to those things. But when we talk about regulation here, we're talking about things like AML, right? Anti-money laundering, sanctions clearing, right? To help really avoid money laundering going into the system, not so much about the actual technology itself, right?
Okay. So on that note, I mean, you're saying that a lot of governments are kind of imposing this regulation on you guys, which I think is a fair thing to do. I mean, this is new, right? And you want to kind of be safe when you're entering the market. Are all governments sort of headed in that direction now? And if not, which I'm guessing it's still new, not everyone is accepting to adopt this new world or this new technology. Are they missing out as a country as a whole if they're not joining forces with this new technology?
Yeah, look, let's compare it to the internet, right? I think that's like the nicest way to think about this. Everyone keeps comparing like, blockchain as a technology is like where the internet was. And actually, if you look at data, it is, right? Like internet, in the 90s, late 90s, before the big takeoff, was pretty much where the adoption rate of crypto and blockchain is today, right? And so, governments and countries generally are looking at new ways to bring GDP up, right? Like they're looking at new ways to drive growth. In the end of the day, this technology can't be ignored. And so governments are looking for ways to drive that innovation in their country. And let's talk about like a bit about what that space is, right? I think another big thing I'm sure we'll kind of double click on is around what the metaverse is, what Web3 is, like why this entire space is of use for people, right?
Yeah, maybe start with that so people are in the picture if they're kind of not familiar with that space, so that we're not dragging on a conversation when people don't even know what the metaverse is in the first place, right?
Yeah, so let's start there, right? So, everything I was describing about these centralized platforms, that's what we call Web 2, right? It's like a platform-driven economy, centralized counterparts that allowed people to create content and put it out to the world at ease, right? Mm-hmm. If you think about it, Web 1, what people kind of refer to is the days of just read-only information. I go on, only very specific, very, very technical people were able to create content. Whereas today, you yourself are able to create content. We're creating content right now. You're using platforms like YouTube, Google, et cetera, to push your message out. However, the issue here is that you don't own that content, right? That content is actually hosted on a centralized platform. You have very little ways, other than through advertising techniques, to actually monetize that content. You don't own your data. You don't own your content, right? That's what Web3 is all about, right? This technology, blockchain, and the decentralized platform allows you to create and own your actual content that you put out there. Same thing goes for financial transactions and your actual value, right? Which is what crypto is. So crypto is just like one subset of this world of blockchain.
So if I were to elaborate on that, correct me if I'm wrong, but like Web 1, the world of Web 1 would be the TV station giving you the information that they want to give you, and they own that information. They can pick and choose what you watch. They can pick and choose who the cast is of a movie. Versus Web 2, where it's the social media world, right? Where I can create my own content, you can create your own content, but you and I don't own the content on Instagram or on YouTube or on whatever. If we want to advertise on it, we can, yes, but we make a marginal amount on that, and then they kind of make the bulk of the money. Mm-hmm. Versus Web 3, where you can have your own website, have your own subscription model, and you can make the majority of the money if you're using ad space. You have direct interaction with your customer base, and you do with it as you see fit. This works in the world of both NFTs and crypto.
Yeah, I mean, crypto, like I said, is more of a way of just transacting or exchanging value in this world, right? But NFTs, 100%, right? That's exactly what this world is all about. So Web3 is like really giving ownership of content and data back to the user, back to the business, right? Back to the creator. You govern who can access to that. You can govern what royalties you earn on that, right? You govern who has information, access to that specific thing. And so if you fast forward to what this world is moving into, that Web3 economy is allowing businesses to actually come up with completely new business models, right? So creating, like I said, content. Let's think something as basic as internet browsing, right? Or tweets and things like that. In the world of Web2 today, you put out your tweet, that content is owned by the platform, that's gone, right? There's no way for you to actually allow people to engage and like earn off that. Whereas in the new world of Web3, you can actually own that content in your wallet as an NFT. And I'll double click on what NFTs are to break it down for people even more. And you can actually decide who can get access to that, who can maybe sell that NFT as your own content that you've created. Your tweets, right, can be its own NFT. Your art can be its own NFT. You can actually track a lot more consistently where that is along the process, who and which audience you want to engage with that process too. So NFTs, let's just go on that, right? Non-fungible token, that's what it stands for. Think of it like a digital certificate. That's like the best and easiest way that anyone's ever described NFTs to me. And what does that mean? So, think about physical items today, very hard to be able to say, what's the history of that item? It's kind of maybe tracked in paper, maybe it's been forged or tampered with. You have absolutely no idea if that item is actually authentic, right? Whereas in the world of NFTs, you're actually placing digital ownership certificates on something that is visible to all. That's what the blockchain is, right? And so you actually own that NFT. You allow people to be able to buy it, to sell it. And more importantly, I, as someone who wants to come and purchase that item, can go and see the full history behind it, right? So I could actually see who's owned this piece of art, who's owned this NFT that may be tied to a physical good. And people always think of NFTs today as like, pictures of monkeys or like all this random stuff. I mean, sure, that's like one big subset today, but you have to understand what this technology really allows people to do, right? NFTs are essentially subscribing digital ownership to anything you can want. That could be music, that could be content that you write and publish, that could be eventually title deeds, that could be your identity on the internet, right? So that's just a way to think about that's like a token, and anything can go into that token, but that token can represent anything behind it. And so like that kind of changes the way we maybe interact with each other, right? You can think about all these new platforms and intermediaries that were there to help govern trust, build trust, no longer are needed, right? Because I can actually go and look online, oh, this is a real thing, this actually represents this item, great, I want to purchase that, right? And the other world, because you had mentioned about Metaverse, the Metaverse, if you think about it, is like a new experience, right? And that's like another good way to describe what the world of the Metaverse is a new experience for people to engage and interact with each other and businesses using technology like VR, virtual reality, AR, augmented reality. They kind of classify all this as like mixed reality, XR. And, why is this so important? Because, again, if you think about it, we're moving more and more into a digital world, right? Let's rewind like 10, 15 years ago. Worlds of like Zooms and video calls was just not around, right? Like we all still met in person and we still had a lot more meetings. Obviously, with more and more things that have been happening, digitization has accelerated, whether it's COVID or any other reason, but digitization has exploded, right? So now everything I do is in a digital manner, right? I call you on Zoom. I have most of my meetings virtually to some extent. People have websites. Like everything is done online or in a digital manner.
E-commerce and all of
Yeah,
this.
e-commerce, like shopping online. So the Metaverse is actually just like taking that up a level. It's like, well, now how do I actually drive a better engagement, a better experience with my consumers? And blockchain kind of underlines all this, right? You go into the Metaverse, like I said, it's like a virtual or an augmented world that you're able to interact with different businesses. And you have to think, as I move more into this world of a digital setting, right, the Metaverse, how do I prove who owns what in that space? How do I sell items in that space? This is where NFTs kick into everything, right? This is where businesses, going back to your original point, where businesses can really capitalize on this technology. Because as you want to explore the Metaverse and you want to make a presence in the Metaverse for people to come engage with your brand in a completely different manner, you want them to be able to buy maybe items, right? And you do that through the NFT world, right?
Okay, so let's take it back to a current example. Okay, you're currently working with brands to help them understand how crypto and NFTs could help them grow their business, where they can tap into even bigger growth. I mean, currently I was reading that there's a whole world that is not on people's books. A valuation of a company or their profits have nothing to do with what they could possibly get out of tokenizing or NFTs or crypto. So to be able to introduce that option to businesses is a huge
100%.
unlock, right? So the key thing is to make it understandable for businesses to say, okay, this makes sense. Give me an example. I mean, I've read currently Majid Al-Futtaim and you guys have signed a contract together. You're working with VirtuZone, I heard. So how are these people adopting, whether it's crypto or NFTs? Give me like a live example.
Yeah, let's go through 3 key things that a business today can like look at exploring this world, right? Again, circle back to why. The first 3 buckets we'll talk about is crypto payments, right? Just like actually accepting a new form of payments, allowing you as a business to sell your items in Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever it might be. That's one, and I'll talk about that in a sec. 2 is, selling digital goods, selling digital items, using NFTs and building that experience and that new engagement with users. And then 3 is actually just outright building new business models using blockchain technology, right? Those are kind of the 3 key, very, very broad buckets that we see business today engaging with this technology. Let's think about why for each one, right? So let's start with 1, new crypto payments. Why is this relevant? Who cares? Okay, well, let's understand first, as a business today, you run multiple businesses yourself, right? Do you only accept cash? No, you accept digital payments too. Why is that? Because the world of digital payments became relevant. It became more and more relevant, right? You want to be able to interact with people. And so you used a new form of technology to open up your audience, right? To be able to sell to someone that sits across the world. Now, the reason crypto adoption and crypto payments are becoming more relevant is because the traditional financial system that we sit on today is very high in cost, right? And being able to send money abroad, being able to receive payments for items abroad becomes very costly when you're selling very small transactions, right? If I want to sell something for $5 and I'm paying $5 in costs, like it's kind of pointless. I can't operate. I can't scale my business, right? So the world of crypto allows to eliminate a lot of those transactions because if you remember, the whole point of this crypto was like it was a peer-to-peer transaction, right? So accepting cryptocurrency as a business today just opens you up to a completely new audience. Why? Because there's tons of people. Like I said, there's almost 1 billion plus people that have touched crypto in some shape or form today, have these assets in their portfolios, and they're looking for ways to use them, just basic utilization. So enabling your business to accept a new form of payment just opens you up to a completely new audience, right? And interestingly, like Deloitte did a massive study about this, and they showed like 85% of correspondents, like a massive study they did, want to use their crypto for new means of payments, right? Whether it's travel, groceries, whatever it might be, utility, phone bill. And so businesses that have actually started opening up to accept cryptocurrency payments have actually seen an increase in their business traffic, right? Let's be honest too, it's not that they've seen like tenfold increase, but they've actually seen an increment. Why? Because again, they're opening up to a new audience, to a new world of people that can pay in maybe something they're receiving because it's easier to receive 1 Bitcoin, 1 Ether, 1 stable coin, whatever it might be, versus receiving, a US dollar in your pocket in that specific circumstance, right? So that's just one big area, right? And the advice that I have to any business looking at, especially when we interact with companies, is there are a lot of tools to help mitigate that risk, right? So, one, they're like, well, that's a lot of integration work. There's a lot of tech I need to do. We do a lot of the heavy lifting. There's great technology today that allows you to literally plug and play. 2, just think of it like another payment channel. Just like you accept card, bank transfers, and cash, accept crypto. It's not that hard, right? But then you might think, okay, as a business, like I'm not an expert in managing Bitcoin and Ethereum and God knows what am I supposed to do with this? Like I'm not a treasurer, right? Not to worry. Again, the whole point of this is that there are tools to allow you to actually receive your currency of choice, just like you do today with Stripe, Adyen, whoever you use around the world, right? You can accept multiple currencies, you can accept multiple cryptocurrencies, but still receive settlement in something that you prefer. That technology exists, right? So that's bucket 1, right? We're seeing that is probably, I would say, the biggest acceleration of adoption by businesses today, just opening up to accepting a new form of payment.
And it's a cheaper form of payment too.
100%. You're seeing costs like, fractional of what others are doing. To give you an idea, it could range anywhere from 0.01%, 0.02% up to maybe like 0.5, 1% versus card payments, which charge you 2, 3%, right, of your transaction cost. So you can think of it as a business, oh, there's more money in my pocket. Fantastic. Like, I'll take that any day of the week, right? Like, because I don't want to pay other people for my hard-earned work.
And
So,
to add a layer to that, it's not just relevant in that case to businesses. I would say it's also relevant to immigrants who are on minimum wage and who are transferring $200 or $300 back home. But then the bank transfer fees or the Western Union fees are at 5, 6, 7%. So that is a big chunk for that. If they're using crypto, then the margin is pretty low for these transfers, and it's instant versus several days with, several days to take.
100%. And actually, it's great that you call that out, right? Because one of the first early use cases of this technology was actually remittances and payments, right? Just thinking about how do we do cross-border payments rather than going through the 20 million loops that we do today with banks and foreign exchange costs and high transaction fees. How do I just get money from me to you in a quick, immediate, and very cost-effective way? One of my previous companies, I worked for a company called Ripple. This was one of their main objectives, just helping to reduce cross-border transactions through the use of blockchain and cryptocurrency, right? So, and there's many of these companies now that do today. Actually, just the other week, MoneyGram, which I'm sure everyone recognizes the name, introduced cryptocurrency into their own wallet, right? So into their own application. So it allows people to now be able to hold, buy cryptocurrency and actually use it almost as a form of remittance. Even here locally, companies like People are doing that very tremendously, right? So that concept 100% is there. Why? Because it's easier, more effective. And the more I'm allowed, and the more businesses accept that form as a form of payment, you can imagine that the layer just keeps going better and better, right? If I can receive money from my family abroad, in cryptocurrency, I can use that cryptocurrency to pay my utility bill. I can use that cryptocurrency to pay with groceries.
But can you convert it easily to cash?
Well, this is like where the regulation kicks in, right? So is it easy to sell your cryptocurrency for local currency cash? Not in every country, right? Because the more and more regulation that opens up, the more and more banks, your traditional banks, are comfortable actually giving you that cash versus cryptocurrency. But that's why, yet again, innovation is kicked off, right? There's things called stable coins. Stable coins today are a token that is tied back to a fiat currency, as we call it, like the US dollar or the euro. Even here in the UAE, they have stablecoin projects that are trying to launch, right? So that is essentially the equivalent of fiat on the blockchain, right? Even governments are exploring this in something called central bank digital currencies. They're thinking of migrating their entire sovereign identity and fiat currencies into the world of blockchain because they see the benefits of what that technology can offer them, right? So that's like bucket one, right? Like one nice big bucket. Thinking about just adoption of crypto has really been fueled a lot by people wanting to use it for remittances, payments, a cheaper and more effective way. And businesses are beginning to accept it more and more.
So we talked about like those businesses, the conglomerates on a bigger scale adopting crypto. Can small businesses benefit as equally and adopt it as easily, if they don't have access to Binance, if they have to do it? I mean, is there a way where a small business can benefit from it?
100%. And this is exactly, you as an individual can benefit from it, right? You can open up a wallet, and you are able to accept cryptocurrency payments, right? Okay. There are tools that obviously, like Binance, we have like our own payment product and solution, but there's many out there, right?
And Binance can do this for small businesses. I mean, they onboard 100%. Everybody.
We do it through, to give you an idea, Binance has, thousands of merchants already around the world that have just signed up, right? From, your small business to supermarkets around the world. Interestingly, they've already started adopting it, to great ride-hailing companies around the world that are starting to adopt it. And then here in the UAE, like you'd mentioned, people like Majd Al-Fateh and Virtue Zone, right? Virtue Zone is an interesting example, right? Because they came to us with an interesting idea of people want to come to the UAE and start their own business. Many of them don't have bank accounts here. They don't want to have to send, high costly wire fees to do that. But a lot of them may have crypto native businesses. Many of them are actually trying to start crypto businesses here. So Virtue Zone actually saw this as an opportunity to dive deeper into it and thought, you know what, let's open the door to allow these people who want to come and start businesses in that space to make payments with what they have, right? And we help do that for them. And they've actually seen great growth of their business, right? A lot of people are using this as a new way to be able to come and pay for fees and services because they just simply don't have access to local banking capabilities and financial services, right? So that's like one reason, right? We're seeing massive, big adoption, like lack of access, financial inclusion. It's like really driving a lot of crypto adoption. The next big thing is around the metaverse relevancy, right? So we think about, let's use the Metaverse experience. I think that's an interesting one too we can look at. So, today they obviously have massive physical stores, but they're also creating a digital presence, right? They're creating a metaverse experience for you to be able to go look into a mall, shop, buy items. But again, like I go back to it, those items that you buy and shop for in the world of this virtual space are essentially caveated with an NFT behind it, right? So I guess the easiest way to think about it is when people play games today and they go and they in-game app, you buy like a cool sword or cool sneakers. Actually, the way that you then can define or show who owns that actual item in this digital experience are through NFTs. So for example, if I've bought a cool sword in a game and that's an NFT, I can actually sell that sword to someone else, right? And I can monetize maybe ways that I've actually engaged in that metaverse space. So we see a lot of businesses coming to us to think about how do I get involved in this space, right? I want to build a new experience. I want to sell maybe a new digital item.
So just to touch on that a bit, that digital item is not converted into a physical item. So if I were to buy Jordan sneakers on the Metaverse from Nike, I will get those Jordans to my doorstep, or do I own the digital version of that pair of Jordans?
I love where you went with that, and I'll tell you why. Because there's a massive company. Well, there's two or three, but let's just call out the kind of the behemoth in the room. A company called Artifact, RTFKT, that got bought out by Nike not so long ago, right? And what they did was actually are exploring tying the world of physical and digital, exactly like you said, right? So when I go and I buy an item in the digital world of the metaverse, just like you said, Air Force Ones, right? They've actually looked at ways to now allow you to get the physical item tied to that digital item, right? With an embedded maybe chip in it or like a QR code that actually links that specific item back to the digital item.
So
and vice versa.
It could also be that there's only those pair of sneakers are only available on the metaverse. So it gets more people to get onto the metaverse because yes, you have your Jordans in the store, but then the Air Force Ones that are exclusive to the metaverse, you'll need to be on there.
So you're seeing massive brands do this, right?
Yeah, but then again, you're saying that it could also not convert to the physical. And I feel like to most people right now, as we stand today, who don't really understand the metaverse, in their eyes, they're thinking, I don't give a shit about having a digital Jordans, right? I care about having the physical Jordans on my feet. So would you say that you describe that digital token almost like having the same value as how people used to trade baseball cards or Pokemons, So it's just a different form of value, and it doesn't necessarily have to have a physical value.
Yes and no. I'm going to, first, let me just talk about the relevance of the digital space. Because interesting you call out that people say, and I hear this a lot from people. They say, who cares about the metaverse? I'm never going to be there. I'm going to argue and challenge that to say, you care more about your digital presence than you people realize. You care what you look like on Instagram. You care about what you post. You care about what your LinkedIn looks like. You care about your professional digital attitude. So people's digital representation is a lot more relevant than people realize, right? That's just
they just don't understand metaverse right now.
Well, that's the thing. Metaverse, like I said, is just an experience. So today, you pretty much care what you look like on LinkedIn, what you look like on social media platforms. Metaverse is just taking that experience up a level. So you will care about what you look like in the digital world. Now, whether that's represented through an avatar, which is your digital representation, whether that's represented by the items that you own in the digital world and people being able to verify those items. I guess a weird comparison that someone once told me is in the physical world, driving a cool car and cool watch is your representation of wealth to some extent, right? Whereas you fast forward into the digital world, actually, if I can show that I own a digital item that's scarce, limited, and it's in high demand, and I can prove that I own that thanks to NFTs, that's my digital kind of show of wealth, sign of my success, So, so I think people are going to realize more and more that actually what they look like and what they care about in the world of the metaverse and this digital representation is becoming more and more legitimized, right?
Yeah, it touches on something that has always been the case, which is just human behavior and ego and all those things that humans actually have within them, whether it's in the version of Metaverse or not, people want to always have the best, the greatest, the biggest, the scarcest,
limited editions, the scarcity, of course,
so
right?
it now is just in a different way, but it doesn't
100%.
mean that people have changed really. It's so it or we're entering a new world. Actually, we're touching on the exact same, characteristics of what humans are made of, right? And it's just in this format versus something else.
Could not agree more, right? And let's just go even further, right? So, we've kind of touched on to some extent now about what that NFT means, like that digital good. I can show that I can verify the ownership. But what does that allow a business to do, right? Let's just go back to your point. Who cares? I'm a business, cool. I sold some digital, shoes. Then what?
Yeah.
Actually, here's kind of where it gets super interesting, right? Because you can verify through this technology, Web3 very broadly, who owns that specific asset, you can actually start tailoring experiences to people that verify ownership of that asset. So I can actually start building exclusive benefits, exclusive memberships to people that have attended certain events because they have a digital representation that they attended the event. Or people that have this particular item, let's say there's only 10,000 items that in the world that are going to be produced. If you own one of these items, you get exclusive access to certain items, to certain events, to certain perks on your apps, whatever it might be, right? So actually, this is like I said, a new way of engaging and experiencing it. So we call that, there's one thing they call in that space called token gating, right? So owning the token allows you to get through a certain barrier, right? And those are the kind of things that are really changing, right? Again, think about today, you buy a subscription. What if I tokenize that subscription? So anyone that has bought that item is able to go and get access to that certain things. Well, that also allows me to then sell that subscription or that token to someone else, right? Mm-hmm. So you can think that this is just going to be becoming more and more relevant to how businesses want to engage their customers. And I say every big brand and every luxury brand around the world has been exploring this, So Gucci have their own user experience in the Metaverse today. You can go, you can kind of explore the Gucci world. You can buy items, whether that's tied to a physical good, whether that's just a digital good in that world. That's all there already, right? So it is growing, and a lot of people are exploring this brand, let's say this technology of NFTs very broadly. Like I say, to either build new experiences with users or just drive completely new engagements that they haven't really thought about before.
What would you say is a successful version of an NFT? What really defines success? Is it maybe linking a utility to the NFT, bringing value to your customers? So the minute you buy an NFT, you will have access, a 1-year membership to my app. You will be able to speak to me one-on-one. I'll give you free consultation. So these are just like utilities or value I'm adding to the customer. Or is it, the price of an NFT, how engaged people are with it? I mean, what is the basic version, in your opinion, of a successful NFT for a business to kind of adopt?
Yeah, I mean, not to be generic back, but I would say it goes down to what was your actual use case that you're trying to drive, right? So if you're simply just selling merchandise, then a success for you was having sold out your collection, right? I created 10,000 items and I sold all 10,000 items. I personally think for businesses, the real drive is going to be utility, right? Actually associating use for that NFT for people, whether that's through new experiences, just like you called out, like a one-on-one conversation with me, membership, whatever it might be, perks, right? I think that's really going to drive what I would call success in the world of NFTs. But again, like I said, some people just find a very, let's say, not premature, but just like a very short-term view of NFTs of just having sold the project and it's done. So I think it goes down to what drives you, right? Like, what's a successful project? I personally associate it with utility, to be very honest. Yeah.
So when you're adopting NFTs, for instance, or you're in that space in general, correct me if I'm wrong, because I want to know if I got this. When you're crowdfunding, let's say for your business, generally you're restricted to the country you're crowdfunding in, based on their regulations and KYC and all of that stuff. Versus if you have an NFT, you're much more global, right? Much more people could kind of buy your NFT. You have access to much more and much bigger audience. Is that applicable across the board, or are there certain restrictions where if you want to sell your NFT, there's also, you have to go through some sort of regulation internally in your country.
Yeah, look, I think capital raising, however and whatever platform you use, is always going to have some level of scrutiny, and rightfully so, right? You need to make sure that you adhere to the right laws in whatever country you're trying to raise money from. I think, to your point, sure, blockchain and this world of cryptocurrency has opened up the audience much easier because, a lot of people have access to mobile phones or the internet and can get involved, right? Can view your project. You just open up your entire platform to a bigger audience. But that said, the premise of what you're trying to do will always raise some level of scrutiny. So I would say it's not as, unfortunately, broad-based as it is today. You are still going through regulations per country, right? So today, for example, if you want to sell a part of your company and you want to do that through NFTs, because it's like just tokenizing, let's say, the share in your company, that still applies to if you're trying to raise capital normally, right? So I would almost question, to some extent, why do something just for the sake of tokenization or NFTs? Like, be realistic about what use case you're trying to do. Obviously, the space still doesn't have full clarity globally, so a lot of people are trying to capitalize on that. But I think that's very short term. I do think that'll change in time, and you will see more clear guidance on how to raise money in many different ways, right? Whether it's through NFTs or selling tokens or selling crypto.
Do you think that people are missing out, long term? For the people that say, look, this is just not my space, is it similar to saying back when the .com era started, internet is just not for me? And then obviously you fast forward 10 years later, you just physically cannot function unless you know how to use the internet. Do you think this is a very similar situation where right now it's probably as confusing as it was back in the .com era, back when apps first started? People are just like, I don't really know how to use an app and what are apps, and it's just not for me. But obviously everything has an app right now.
Yeah.
Is that similar? Do you think that in 5 years, if businesses, small or big, don't incorporate NFTs or crypto, they're just going to be left behind?
I think the maybe the better way to phrase that is also just to say, is Web3 relevant, and do I really need to care about it? I wholeheartedly say yes, and I think it's exactly like you called out. Internet, once upon a time, people didn't think it was relevant, but it proved very differently. Web3 as a concept, and what forget crypto and NFTs, let's just go like blockchain technology is enabling businesses to do and how we want to interact, is definitely here to stay. That's not going around anywhere. Now, would a business find it useful? Again, it goes back to the point I made. Your digital presence and how we're interacting with each other is becoming more and more relevant. So yes, you are going to see metaverse experiences pop up. You are going to be able to plug in and explore different worlds and different experiences. And the way to do that is through this technology, right? Web3, crypto, NFTs, however you want to call it. And so I definitely think it's worth exploring in any shape or form, whether that's something as simple as I will just open up and accept cryptocurrency as a form of payment. Great, that's just one start. Or whether it's, I do want to do a full-blown deep dive into how I can actually engage and sell to a different audience through NFTs, right? That's on the business side. On the individual side, because I know we talk a lot about businesses, but let's just make it relevant to the average Joe, right? Is it relevant? Look, I see cryptocurrency as just another asset class, right? Whether you go and buy stocks, bonds, cryptocurrency, it's speculative in nature, right? So
we're talking here in the context of trading crypto, trading NFTs, right? Not incorporating it with businesses.
No, just simple individuals trying to get exposure to the space. Sure, buying cryptocurrency is a great way to get exposure to the space, but just like any other asset class, there's volatility. It's going to go up, it's going to go down, right? Everything goes up and down, unfortunately. That's just the nature of markets. Would I recommend getting involved in trading cryptocurrency? Of course, it's always good to have exposure to something new. Would I further recommend people educate themselves about what the projects they're investing in? Sure. Just like you do today with a stock. You wouldn't buy a stock without understanding the company behind it. It's the same thing with cryptocurrency, right? You understand what's the project behind this cryptocurrency. Why does this token even exist? Is it something legit? Is it something that makes sense to want to purchase? 100%, right? And that goes back to your very, very first point about the whole scam and worrying about getting scammed. That's why companies like Binance exist. That's why there are these centralized platforms. It allows users to feel safe about some of the projects that are listed on those platforms to be able to interact and purchase with. Obviously, the world of crypto and decentralization allows me to buy from you without any reference to a Binance or a bank or anything. But I have no idea about that project that you're trying to sell me. It's very hard for me to do that level of scrutiny. So, that one intermediate step of actually working through what we call centralized exchanges helps, right? It helps just give that extra level of comfort about what I'm buying, where my money is being held, the security around it. So that's kind of like when I think about the individuals, just the traders, right? And NFTs are the same thing, right? If you want to purchase a certain asset, just like you go purchase rare items today, right? I want to go buy a Mona Lisa. Sure, I can hang it on my wall. I think it's going to increase in value. The same concept would represent NFTs, right? You want to hold something that you believe has scarcity and it's going to increase in value. Then NFTs are an interesting way to do that, right?
So if you're not the individual trader, okay? I mean, if you're the trader, actually, let's put it in context. 2021. Bull market, everybody's in crypto, everybody's in NFTs, everyone's super excited, big burst, just like anything else that becomes a bubble. And now we're in a bearish market. So anyone who has entered as a trader, full rightedly, will be sitting on the sidelines right now, kind of thinking, you know what, I don't know if I want to get back in. This is a bit scary. I just lost all my money. And that's fully understandable. But if you're a business, and you're not incorporating NFTs or crypto in that context where you're basing it on market speculation or market volatility. If you're basically incorporating it as a business where, you know what, I just want to give an additional service to my customer. I want to be able to give so-and-so utility. So I'll have an NFT linked to my business that can give access to concerts, access to events, Why do people in businesses right now also have a very big fear of entering the crypto world or the NFT world when it's irrelevant to market speculation?
Again, I think it goes down to education, right? Just people aren't aware of this space. That's why shows like this is fantastic, right? You're just helping get the word out. You're helping people understand actually there is a lot more to it than just the price going up, the price going down. But actually, again, people love to just focus on one thing. It's a bear market. I mean, if I own Tesla stock, if I own any of these tech stocks, I'm also down 70, 80%, right? So, I mean, the markets are moving up and down right now. That's more of a global economic discussion, right? But, businesses that want to get involved in the space are actually, again, finding new ways to engage the customer. So I, really do implore people to go and look at this technology, really think about what it can do to help build your audience, to help drive your platform, to help build new kind of loyalty with customers, right? And I think that's actually what people are looking at.
So where can people start?
Again, the most easiest and basic way is start with, again, shameless plug, but Binance.com, right? We have an academy that is completely free to use. People can learn about the basics of technology, whether it's NFTs or crypto trading or blockchain. So definitely go use that as an easy, very basic source of technology or of a platform to educate yourself. And then from there, you start learning, right? You start networking with the right people, watching shows like this.
Can Binance consult then tell them, look, for your type of business, you can have this sort of NFT or use crypto for your, with your suppliers instead of using PayPal or instead of using bank transfers?
100%. We do that all around the world, right? So I specifically run the partnerships team. So we work with businesses, large and big, to actually engage with them, right? To explore this technology, how it can be used, what is the benefits of it. So we definitely work on that level, right? We come in, we prospect customers to do it. And we do that all around the world, right? So
what about to educate yourself through, other than Binance, do you have a specific, I don't know if you want to name, but do you have a specific account you follow or a YouTube channel you follow that you think is great to give you basics to introduction to?
Honestly, I would say that there's just so much content out there. It's crazy. So I wouldn't even call one specific thing out. If you literally just go onto YouTube or Google and just very basically look up the basics of crypto, you will find a plethora of education. I obviously suggest Binance because I think it really just breaks it down, and because I work there.
And it's legit. Like we know that it's legit and it's not biased, right?
Yeah, and you'll come to world like the world of crypto and NFTs lives on things like Twitter today. So you follow tons of interesting accounts, but again, I would put that with a massive caveat for. That's kind of where people start falling into bad scams and getting bad advice by following random people that they just don't trust. So to your point, go to a platform that you trust, right? As I said, we are even working with universities around the world, right, to begin to bring out into the public education system world about blockchain and crypto, and actually helping educate people at a much younger age about what this technology and space can offer to you.
Yeah. Look, I'm glad I had you on the show. I mean, I understand where people are coming from when they see, the scammer that they know in their life making $1 million on crypto. They're probably going to be very cautious about entering, right? They know that it takes a lot of time and effort, and they're trading their time for money and making, spending 8-9 hours in a job to make money. And then all of a sudden they're seeing that this new technology is making you a millionaire overnight and making a teenager a millionaire overnight. So I understand that people are a bit weary. So just to break it down, this is not what crypto is about.
Not at all. No.
This is not what it means to be a crypto trader or to kind of be in the space, right? Everybody kind of makes money on a whim in real estate. I mean, if you're buying in a bear market and then there's a boom, obviously you're going to get
100%.
You're going to make money. But the idea is after the market regulates, after the filtering is done, just like everything else, just like the dot-com era, just like apps, how much capital injection was put in ridiculous apps that do nothing. And then as soon as the market regulates, these apps are kind of demolished. And then you'll have the ones that are prosperous, leading the way, change makers, paving the way to what the technology actually is.
100%.
And I think the same thing will apply with crypto. As soon as we recover, only the strong ones will be there.
100%. And look, just like every other thing, 99% of things will fail, right? And I think that's actually where it goes back to just educating yourself. Just like you would go, if you're a trader and you're looking to invest in the space, just like you would when you pick a stock, research a project before you go and buy the token associated with that project or the NFT with that project. If you're a business, I think you're a bit more focused on the utility that you're trying to drive, right? So what is your underlying lever that you're trying to pull? Am I trying to reach more of an audience? Great. Here's a few levers that you can pull. Am I just looking for a PR and marketing stunt? Sure. There's things that are focused on that too, right? But what is your underlying drive? Like, what are you trying to do, right? And I would definitely agree with you. I think, this is so nascent. I go back to the point of we are so early in this space. The adoption globally is just shy of 1 billion people using this. That's nothing, right? It's such a limited amount of people. And even then, the group of people that are looking at NFTs or have access to crypto today is even a small subset of that, right? So it's still nascent, it's still growing. But just like you point, you fast forward in 5 years from now, I wouldn't even say 3 years from now. I wouldn't even go as far as 5 years. In 3 years from now, is this going to be relevant? 100%, right? We are moving into a digital space. You're engaging more into a virtual experience, whether you call that Metaverse or whatever it is. And I think that's going to continue to be relevant to people.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.